Nobody expected this. Filipino boys Elvis Presley covers STUNS America's Got Talent judges. The lights dimmed, the audience buzzed with anticipation, and the camera panned across the judges' table. Simon Cowell adjusted his tie, Mel B leaned forward, and Heidi Klum's eyes sparkled with curiosity. But none of them could have predicted what was about to happen. Entering the stage was a small, unassuming boy from the Philippines. At first glance, he seemed nervous, fidgeting slightly, as if the weight of the moment was almost too much for his young shoulders. His name was Miguel, and he had flown thousands of miles with a single dream: to sing on the biggest stage of his life. Miguel's journey had not been easy. Growing up in a small town in the Philippines, he often had to share one microphone with his siblings during local church performances. His family wasn't wealthy, and money for music lessons was scarce. But Miguel had a gift that no one could take away, a voice that carried raw emotion, a voice that seemed to tell stories far beyond his age. Every night, he practiced in secret, watching old Elvis Presley videos, trying to emulate not just the sound but the soul of the music. His mother would peek through the doorway and sometimes cry quietly, knowing her son was chasing a dream bigger than their small town could contain. The night before the audition, Miguel had almost given up. The long flight, the jet lag, and the intimidating thought of standing in front of millions had nearly broken him. But then he remembered his father's words, spoken with a voice trembling from pride and worry: "Sing, Miguel. Sing as if your heart is speaking. That is the only way they will hear you." And with that, he found courage in the quiet hours, rehearsing every note until it resonated from his soul. When he stepped onto the AGT stage, the audience clapped politely, unsure of what to expect from a boy so small, so young, and so quiet. But as the first notes of "Can't Help Falling in Love" filled the room, something magical happened. Miguel's voice soared, tender yet powerful, carrying the deep warmth of Elvis Presley's legendary tone while adding his own youthful sincerity. You could hear a pin drop in the theater. The judges exchanged glances, their eyebrows raised in surprise. Simon Cowell, known for his unshakable composure, leaned forward, his mouth slightly open, eyes wide with astonishment. As Miguel sang, flashes of his life played through his mind: the crowded streets of his town, the long walks to school, the nights practicing alone, the gentle encouragement of his mother. Every challenge, every sacrifice, poured into his performance. And it was visible in the way the audience leaned in the way people held their breath, and in the way the judges' hands twitched as if ready to applaud but waiting for the final note. When Miguel hit the last note, pure and resonant, silence lingered for a heartbeat, then erupted into thunderous applause, standing ovations, and cheers that shook the theater. Tears streamed down his face as the judges rose from their seats. Mel B was wiping hers. Heidi Klum whispered something, stunned, almost unable to speak. Simon Cowell, the man who had seen thousands of auditions, could only manage a slow, deliberate nod and mutter, "That was incredible." The audience went wild, and for a moment, the world seemed to pause, honoring a boy who had dared to dream bigger than his circumstances. Backstage, Miguel's family rushed to hug him, their tears of joy mixing with his. They had known he was talented, but to see him touch the hearts of millions on such a grand stage was beyond imagination. Interviews followed, videos went viral, and messages of support poured in from across the globe. But amidst all the fame and excitement, Miguel never forgot why he started singing: to inspire, to touch hearts, and to honor the sacrifices of those who believed in him. By the end of the night, viewers were left with more than just a beautiful performance. They were left with a story of courage, perseverance, and the unshakable belief that dreams are worth chasing, no matter where you come from or how impossible they may seem. Miguel reminded everyone that true talent is more than skill, it's heart, soul, and the courage to stand in front of the world and say, "Here I am." So if Miguel's story moved you, inspired you, or made you believe in the magic of chasing your dreams, don't forget to hit that like button, share this incredible moment, and subscribe to the channel for more amazing stories that will touch your heart and ignite your own passions. Because just like Miguel, sometimes the most unexpected performances are the ones that stay with us forever. Nobody expected this. Filipino boys Elvis Presley covers STUNS America's Got Talent judges. The moment Miguel stepped onto the stage, the world seemed to hold its breath. The bright lights, the huge audience, and the cameras zooming in from every angle might have been intimidating to anyone, but for a small boy from a quiet town in the Philippines, it felt like a mountain too steep to climb. And yet, here he was. His heart was pounding so loudly he could almost hear it over the audience applause. His hands trembled slightly, but his eyes held something stronger than fear and unshakable hope, a determination born from years of silent practice in tiny rooms with cracked walls. Where the only audience was a mother who cheered quietly and a father who always reminded him to keep chasing his dreams. The judges watched him curiously, expecting perhaps another nervous child auditioning for the cameras, but nobody could have imagined what was about to happen. Miguel's journey to this stage was anything but easy. Growing up in a small town with limited opportunities, music was more than a passion, it was a lifeline. Every day, he would listen to old Elvis Presley recordings, watching the way Elvis's voice carried both tenderness and strength, and he would try to mimic it. He didn't have professional lessons, didn't have expensive instruments, and sometimes even the microphone at home was shared between his siblings during church performances. But what he did have was heart, and a voice that seemed to tell a story much bigger than himself. Night after night, he sang in secret, sometimes until his voice grew hoarse, practicing every nuance, every pause, every emotion. He wasn't just learning a song, he was learning how to make people feel something. The flight to America had been long and exhausting. Jet lag made his eyelids heavy, and the weight of performing on one of the world's biggest stages pressed down on him like never before. The night before the audition, doubt crept in. Can I really do this? What if I fail? He whispered to himself, staring at the ceiling of his hotel room. But then he remembered his father's words, spoken with a voice full of pride and love, "Sing, Miguel. Sing as if your heart is speaking. That is the only way they will hear you." With that, he found courage again. He closed his eyes, practiced the melody once more, imagining all the long walks to school, the evenings spent rehearsing alone, and the faces of his family beaming with hope. And then, it was his turn. The audience clapped politely, a quiet hum of curiosity filling the theater. At first, Miguel's nerves made him hesitate, but as the first note of "Can't Help Falling in Love" left his lips, everything changed. His voice, young but full of warmth, wrapped around every heart in the room. It was tender, yet powerful. Every note carried years of practice, every pause a hint of emotion only he could convey. The judges leaned forward, their expressions shifting from polite interest to astonishment. Simon Cowell's mouth opened slightly, almost in disbelief, while Melby blinked back tears, and Heidi Klum's jaw dropped as she felt the emotion in the music reach her very soul. The audience fell silent, caught between awe and reverence, mesmerized by a boy who seemed small on stage but enormous in spirit. As Miguel sang, flashes of his life seemed to play in front of him, the crowded streets of his hometown, the nights when electricity was scarce but dreams were not, the moments he had almost given up but kept singing anyway. Every sacrifice, every struggle, every tear, poured into his performance. The song wasn't just a cover, it was a story of resilience, courage, and unyielding hope. The notes climbed, floated, and hung in the air, leaving everyone holding their breath. And when he hit the final note, clear and perfect, the silence lingered for a heartbeat, heavy and sacred, before the entire theater erupted. Standing ovations shook the stage, the audience roared, and even the judges, normally stoic and discerning, could not hide their amazement. Simon Cowell, ever the tough critic, simply shook his head and muttered, "That was incredible." Backstage, Miguel's family rushed to him, tears streaming down their faces, hearts overflowing with pride. They had always known he was special, but seeing him move an audience of millions was beyond belief. Messages of admiration and support poured in from around the world. Videos went viral. Comments flooded social media, celebrating the courage and talent of this small boy with a big heart. And through it all, Miguel remained humble, remembering why he started singing in the first place, not for fame, but to touch hearts, to inspire, and to honor the love and sacrifices of those who believed in him. By the end of the night, viewers everywhere were left with more than just an amazing performance. They were left with a story of courage that anyone could relate to. Miguel had reminded the world that true talent is about heart and soul, not just skill. He had shown that challenges, no matter how overwhelming, are only obstacles to be overcome with determination. And he proved that sometimes, the most unexpected performances are the ones that stay with us forever, the ones that remind us of the beauty of dreams and the power of perseverance. So, if Miguel's story touched you, inspired you, or reminded you to chase your dreams no matter the odds, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs a little spark of hope today. Because Miguel's journey proves something simple yet profound: no matter where you come from, no matter how small or uncertain you feel, your heart and courage can create magic that the world will never forget. And that is the kind of story that stays with us, long after the lights fade and the applause ends. Nobody expected this. Filipino boys Elvis Presley covers STUNS America's Got Talent judges. The moment Miguel stepped onto the America's Got Talent stage, something magical happened. The lights were blinding, the audience's applause buzzed like electricity, and the cameras captured every detail of the towering theater. At first glance, he seemed so small, so fragile, almost swallowed by the grandeur of it all. His hands trembled, and a faint nervous smile flickered across his face, but there was something in his eyes, a quiet determination, that made it clear he wasn't just here to audition. He was here to tell a story, to share a dream, and to sing not just with his voice, but with every ounce of his heart. Miguel's journey had begun in a small town in the Philippines, a place where the streets were crowded, the houses small, and the opportunities for music almost non-existent. He grew up in a humble home where the only microphone was shared with his siblings during church performances. His family wasn't wealthy, and every day presented challenges that could have easily crushed his dreams. But music was his escape, his refuge, and his way to communicate emotions too big for words. He would spend hours watching videos of Elvis Presley, captivated not just by the songs, but by the emotion behind each note, the way Elvis could make a whole room feel something extraordinary with a single chord. Miguel practiced tirelessly, sometimes until his voice cracked, and often his mother would peek in quietly, her eyes glistening with pride and worry. She knew her son was special, and she knew that talent like his deserved to be seen. The night before his audition, Miguel was almost ready to give up. The long flight, the unfamiliar city, and the pressure of performing in front of millions of viewers had left him exhausted. He sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the ceiling, questioning if he was ready for this moment. Doubts whispered in his ears: what if they don't like me? What if I fail? But then he remembered his father's words, spoken softly but firmly, filled with unwavering faith: sing, Miguel. Sing as if your heart is speaking. That is the only way they will hear you. That night, in the quiet of his hotel room, Miguel practiced once more. He imagined the crowded streets of his hometown, the evenings spent singing by candlelight, and the faces of his parents who had believed in him even when it seemed impossible. With every note, his courage grew. When he finally stepped on stage, the audience applauded politely, curious but unsure what to expect. He adjusted the microphone slightly, took a deep breath, and began to sing. The first notes of "Can't Help Falling in Love" floated gently through the theater, tender yet resonant. It was as though time had slowed down, and everyone in the room leaned in, captivated by the unexpected depth and richness of his voice. Miguel's performance was more than singing, it was storytelling. Each word, each note, carried emotion that no audience could ignore. The judges leaned forward, expressions shifting from polite interest to sheer astonishment. Simon Cowell's lips parted in surprise, Melby blinked rapidly, trying to hold back tears, and Heidi Klum's mouth dropped open as she absorbed the raw power and beauty of Miguel's voice. As Miguel continued, his mind wandered back to every sacrifice he had made. The long walks to school, the nights singing alone when others slept, the countless times he practiced in secret while hoping someone, somewhere, would hear his voice one day. Every challenge, every setback, every tear he had shed fueled his performance. The audience could feel it. The room was silent, holding its collective breath as Miguel's voice filled every corner, carrying not just a song, but a lifetime of dreams, determination, and hope. His final note lingered in the air, a pure, crystalline sound that seemed to echo far beyond the stage itself. And then, as if released from a spell, the audience erupted. Applause thundered through the theater, people rose to their feet, and cheers shook the walls. The judges were on their feet, unable to contain their amazement. Simon Cowell, the man who had seen thousands of auditions, simply shook his head and muttered, "That was incredible." Tears streamed down Melby's face, Heidi Klum whispered in awe, and the audience clapped, cheered, and whistled, completely captivated by this small boy with a gigantic heart. Miguel stood there, eyes glistening with tears, absorbing the moment that he had dreamed about for so long. Backstage, his family rushed to him, hugging him tightly, crying and laughing at the same time. Their pride and love were palpable, the kind of joy that comes from seeing a dream realized against all odds. Messages of support poured in from around the world. Social media exploded with clips of his performance, praising the courage, talent, and heart of this incredible boy. And yet, amidst all the acclaim and viral fame, Miguel remained humble. He remembered why he sang, not for fame, not for applause, but to touch hearts and honor the sacrifices of those who had believed in him. Miguel's story became more than a viral moment, it became an inspiration. He reminded viewers everywhere that no matter where you come from, no matter how small or uncertain you feel, courage, perseverance, and heart can overcome the greatest challenges. His performance proved that true talent is not measured by the size of the stage, the grandeur of the audience, or even the number of fans, but by the passion, emotion, and authenticity a performer brings to every note. And as the applause faded and the lights dimmed, Miguel's journey left a lasting impression, proving that dreams are worth chasing, no matter how impossible they may seem. So if Miguel's story moved you, inspired you, or reminded you of the power of courage and determination, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs a spark of hope today. Because Miguel taught the world something simple yet profound: no matter who you are or where you come from, your heart, your voice, and your courage can create magic that resonates far beyond anything you ever imagined. And that is the story that stays with us long after the stage lights fade, long after the applause ends, and long after the world has turned its eyes away, because some moments are simply unforgettable.